Let me tell you about the time and the day that I died. I had a memory when I was 9 years old, and I remember my parents fighting in the middle of the night. My older sister, Diane, told me to go in the house or people would hear me. So I ran in the house. I ran to the bathroom screaming still, just couldn't stop, and got down on my knees and closed my eyes. I put my hands together and said, God, if you exist, if you love me, you'll take me away from this life. Now I'm gonna count to 10, and when I open my eyes, I wanna be gone. You hear me? And I opened my eyes, and I was still there.
On top of that, your father also was an alcoholic, right?
Yeah.
And he beat your mother, so you had to live with that abuse as well. What kind of a scar has that left in terms of dealing with that? What did you do as a child as you saw your father beating your mother?
The only thing I knew how to do was to just stand there and be frightened, and to go to school with that trauma, to go to school being hungry, to go to school smelling.
How did you rise out of that anger of the injustice?
Oh my God. I don't necessarily feel like I'm out of the anger. He left me right there, so when I gained vision and strength and forgiveness, I can remember what it means to be a child who was hungry. I could remember what it means to be in trauma. I could remember poverty, alcoholism. I could remember what it means to be a child who dreams and sees no physical manifestation of it. I could remember because I lived it. I was there. We would go to bed and hear rats killing the pigeons in the roof. I mean, loud, squealing noises. We would wrap our sheets around our necks at night because the rats would crawl through holes in the wall, and you could hear them eating our toys at night and jumping on top of our beds. I always say that I was a bedwetter until I was 14. And I did everything to get food. I've stolen for food. I've jumped in huge garbage bins with maggots for food. And I sacrificed a childhood for food and grew up in immense shame. The one thing that I learned when I was poor, and this is something that people just need to say out loud, okay, is that you are invisible. Nobody sees you. You know, they say that the two most important days in a person's life is the day you were born and the day you discover why you were born. I absolutely knew I wanted to be an actor because I wanted to be somebody. I wanted to dream big and make a mark somehow. What is that one element that literally helps that kid who has nothing achieve ultimate success? What is that one factor? And they always say it's one person who was a mentor. I saw Miss Cicely Tyson in the autobiography of Miss Jane Pittman, and I saw a physical manifestation of a dream. I saw something that I could put my feet on the floor when I got out of bed in the morning, and I had a passion that could drive me. Just drive, that's it. But at 28, I crashed and burned because emotionally I didn't get out. But as much as I didn't want to be my mother's daughter, I was very much my mother's daughter. I was still very much traumatized by the past. I very much was that little girl running from 8 to 9 boys who were always calling me, you black, ugly you're ugly, you're black, you're this. It still very much was internalized in me, and it manifested itself through low self-esteem, through bad relationships, with not believing in myself.
How did you get out of that darkness into the light, into the dream?
Two things, okay? Number one, there's a difference between having a goal and having a purpose. It's a vision for a future that is living a life that is heroic. The other part of it is understanding your mortality, that you have a dash of time And what do you want to do? How do you want to run this leg of your race?
Everybody in this room, I'm sure at some point, has gone through something in their lives, and you've survived it. But not only did you survive it, you took that trauma, that hurt, that revelation, or whatever it was, and you used it to connect, to give, to influence.
I have a picture of you.
Oh my God.
What message you have for that girl?
I have a message for that girl. History is not the past. It is the present. The world is broken because we're broken. Who said that all of who you are has to be good? All of who you are is who you are. How about owning it? Owning all of it. The good and the bad. Own every heroic deed and experiences, even if they were traumatic. Own it. And then you seize the sword. No one and nothing can be great unless it costs you something. The living life for something bigger than yourself is a hero's journey. You have only to follow the thread of the hero path. Your existence is an amalgamation of every triumph, every hard-won battle, and yet here you are, privileged, blessed, to do what?
Viola Davis used to have to steal food to keep her stomach full. Now, she's raised more than $4.5 million for starving children. This is the evolution of Viola Davis. Long before her Golden Globe, Emmy, Tony, and Academy Award accolades, Viola Davis was starved of everything except talent. Her grandmother delivered Viola into the world in a one-room sharecropper shack on a former plantation in South Carolina in the summer of 1965. The family moved to Rhode Island soon after her birth and into the dilapidated apartment that would house the majority of her childhood memories and later haunt her in adulthood.
It was infested by rats. We would go to bed and hear rats killing the pigeons in the roof.
Between Viola, her parents, and her 5 siblings, the groceries bought with their monthly welfare checks seemed to disappear in the blink of an eye. They frequently went without food or bathing. She landed in detention at school on many occasions because her hunger and shame made her angry and unfocused. It was only after watching Cicely Tyson in the autobiography of Miss Jane Pittman that Viola fell in love with acting. After attending Rhode Island College on a full scholarship, she was one of 24 actors chosen for a scholarship to the Juilliard School in New York City. She graduated from Juilliard in 1993 and received her first Tony Award nomination only 3 years later. Well-trained and strong-willed, Viola impressed from Broadway to LA. In 2000, Viola landed her first starring TV series role in the hospital drama City of Angels, which only lasted for 2 seasons. City of Angels might not have lasted, but it is where Viola met her husband, Julius Tenen, who did a 2-episode stint as an anesthesiologist. It was the Meryl Streep and Philip Seymour Hoffman-led Doubt in 2008 that gave audiences their first glimpse of her icon potential. Although she was only on screen for 2 scenes, Viola was nominated for an Academy Award for Best Performance by an Actress in a Supporting Role.
Excuse me, but you don't know enough about life to say a thing like that, sister.
I know enough.
You know the rules maybe, but that don't cover it.
I know what I won't accept.
You accept what you gotta accept and you work with it.
In 2010, she won a Tony for her performance in the Broadway production Fences, a remake of August Wilson's 1983 play, which placed her alongside Denzel Washington, who had directed her 7 years prior in Antoine Fisher.
It's not easy to admit that I've been standing in the same place for 18 years. Well, I've been standing with you. I gave 18 years of my life to stand in the same spot as you.
Viola's scene-stealing abilities would soon put her in the position to achieve significance along with success. Although she received an Oscar nomination for her role as Aibileen Clark in The Help, Viola has admitted that she regrets her involvement because she didn't feel the stories of the maids she, Octavia Spencer, and Cicely Tyson portrayed were fully told. I know Aibileen, she says. I know many. They're my grandma. They're my mom. And I know that if you do a movie where the whole premise is, I want to know what it feels like to work for white people and to bring up children in 1963, I want to hear how you really feel about it. Viola has demonstrated the range of her talents on films such as Get On Up, Lila and Eve, and Suicide Squad. But it's the characters that tell the untold stories of blackness that push her off an emotional cliff and into the hearts of millions. In 2016, Viola Davis and Denzel Washington found themselves back in the bitter setting of August Wilson's 1950s Pittsburgh, when their interpretation of Fences was adapted into a film.
Don't you think I ever wanted other things? Don't you think I had dreams and hopes? What about my life? What about me?
Viola won a Golden Globe and an Oscar for her supporting role. On Peter Nowalk's How to Get Away with Murder, Viola constantly peels back new, fascinating, and often frightening layers of criminal defense lawyer and professor Annalise Keating, shattering the glass ceiling on decades of typecasting of Black women. In 2015, she became the first African-American woman to win a Primetime Emmy for lead actress in a drama series. She used her acceptance speech to acknowledge the lack of complex roles being written for women of color.
And let me tell you something. The only thing that separates women of color from anyone else is opportunity.
And she's continued to speak out on the need for studios to walk the talk when it comes to creating more diversity in Hollywood, despite perceived consequences.
You're afraid that that movie's not going to make any money internationally. You're afraid that the demographic of 18 to 34-year-old are not going to tune into your show, so you can't have a 52-year-old dark-skinned Black woman in the lead role, and oh my God, we're going to lose advertisers. My whole thing is, if you're dedicated to change, let it cost you something.
Never forgetting the impoverished upbringing that made her, Viola has helped raise more than $4.5 million for Hunger Is, a campaign that aims to eradicate childhood hunger in America. In 2017, Viola Davis received a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame and high praise from her Doubt co-star in Idol, Meryl Streep.
She's a force of nature, a geyser of emotion. There seems to be no limit to her source.
Viola Davis isn't supposed to exist. Her circumstances tried to beat her spirit into disillusionment, but she used determination and exceptional talent to fight her way out. Viola Davis might not have received her roses until later in her career, but the smell is just as sweet. Thanks for watching.
If you like that video, please like, comment, and subscribe.